Welcome to JazzTime. JazzTime.com is an online store that buys, sells, trades authentic luxury watches. We make these videos so our customers can easily choose the best watch for themselves in the comfort of their own home. If you like this video or like this watch and want to buy it, click on the link in the description below to buy it at the lowest price anywhere online. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Patek Philippe Grand Complication Split Seconds Chronograph, reference 5370P-001. I'm going to talk to you guys about the bezel, the dial, the bracelet, the movement, I don't know what else, and give you my thoughts and try it on. So let's start. This watch is part of the Grand Complications of Patek, which is the highest subcategory that Patek has. They have a Grand Complication, which is what you're looking at. They have a Complications, which is the cheaper, basically. And then they have the Calatrava, which is even cheaper, and they have the sports line. So the Grand Complication, as the name implies, is of the very highest quality that Patek makes. Not that their other ones aren't high quality, it's just they all have the same high quality. It's just that the Grand Complication has, as the name implies, much more complications, which makes it more expensive. Even the cheaper Calatravas are of the same Patek quality. They just don't have as many complications and hence aren't as expensive, kind of like buying a base model Mercedes versus like an AMG Mercedes. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about the case, as I said. The case here is 41 millimeters. Now that's from the 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock position, the longest distance across this watch, that's 41 millimeters. To give you a little bit of reference, 41 millimeters, it's a good size, it's not a big size, and it's not a small size. Men's dress watches generally can range from 36 millimeters all the way up to 44 if it's a gigantic men's dress watch. Now, this watch being at 41, it's right in the middle of that. Let's take, for example, let's compare it to the Rolex Datejust, which is also 41, Datejust 40. Datejust 41? No, Datejust 41. So the Datejust 41 is also the same size. It's a standard large men's just watch, okay? So it's a reasonable size. And if you look at the Audemars Piguet code 11.59, it's also 41 millimeters. And if you look, so those are the other two biggest brands, Patek, AP, and Rolex, and they all using 41 millimeters. So it's a very good size. Now let's look at the height. Turn it on its side and you can see the height. Now this height, I will tell you, it's 13.56 millimeters. But when you look at it on the side profile, to me at least, it does not look that thick. And I'll tell you why. This case, and I actually was going to talk to you mostly about this case. This case, I have to say, is one of the most beautiful cases on a dress watch I've ever seen. And let me tell you why. Look at these ridges on the case. So you notice how in the center of the case it's actually brushed polished. It's a satin finish. Now you can't get a satin finish. Well, let me put that. The middle, it kind of even looks like there's a mid-case to it, like there's a case that's put together, but it's actually not. It's actually all one piece. It's a solid piece of platinum. By the way, did I mention this case is made out of platinum? Well, if I didn't, then it is. It's made of platinum, and it actually looks like it would be several pieces stuck together, but it's not. It's actually one piece. And so if you look on the side of the case, just look at the side of the case. This is all brushed polished here, a satin finished polish. And you'll see it sort of has these two knobs at the end of it, right where the bracelet strap connects to the head of the watch, and it adds these two little notches. I think it's pretty cool. It's unique. I don't really see it very often. I think it's a throwback to some vintage something, and I think it looks pretty cool. And just the case itself, if you look at the ridges, I mean, wow, you don't really see that very often. Usually what watchmakers do is make it flat, completely flat, which actually makes the watch look fatter. When you make these ridges and you put designs on it and you put something on it, it makes the case look skinnier. So they've disguised their kind of thick watch. I mean, it's 13.5 millimeters. They give you some reference. A Rolex Datejust is around 12. And an offshore AP is somewhere around 15 millimeters. So it's right in the middle of that. It's not skinny, but they had to put a lot of things in this. So they can't make it that skinny. But they've disguised the big case by putting very cool ridges on the edge of this case, which I think is fantastic. Okay, now let's look on the other side, the crown side. So when you look at the crown side, now this side becomes even more interesting. The crown side profile, you can see the three buttons, and you can see, of course, there's a lot going on here. And not only, can I also bring your attention to this? If you look at the top of when you look at the side profile, the bezel, it's actually concave. The bezel is, when I mean concave Concave means that it slopes inward as opposed to slopes outward. So that would be convex. This is concave, and cave meaning going downward. And actually, you know what they've done? Most people probably wouldn't notice this, but look, you see the bottom of the case? They actually kind of have a bezel for the case back, and it's symmetrical to the bezel on the top. The bezel on the covering the case back is, guess what? Also concave. So it makes the watch look skinnier in my opinion, and it gives the watch some depth. So when you look at it on the side profile, it actually looks much skinnier. You actually only see the high brush polish section of it, and you don't even see the concave section of it. It almost disappears. Wow. It's a really design feat I think that Patek has done to it. Okay. Well, that's the case. I think it's very special because they don't use this same case in any other watch. They only use it in this one, at least as I know of. So I think that's something very unique about Patek. They're using different cases for different watches. For example, like Rolexes, they're using the same case for almost every watch, just different size. And same goes with AP, which is not a bad thing because those are excellent watches and it's instantly recognizable. But one of the interesting things and fantastic things that Patek does is they're using different cases for all their different watches. They're not just taking the same case and reusing it. That's a good and bad thing. In one way, it's hard to recognize this watch as a Patek, but in another way, it's unique. It gives the watch its own character. So I guess you can look at it two different ways. At any rate, this is a very unique case. It's only used on the 5370, and you're looking at it right now. Okay, I guess I said I was going to talk about the bezel. I've actually already talked about it. The bezel is concave, and what else I can mention about this concave bezel is that, interestingly, Patek made the bezel very thin. So what does that mean? That means that the dial, it can go out to the periphery. The dial can go out to the very edge of the watch, and that makes the watch actually look even bigger. It's 41 millimeters, which is an average size, but the fact that the dial goes out to the very edge, it makes the dial look even bigger, which is good because it makes the watch also more legible, interestingly enough. Okay, so I've talked to you guys about the case, the bezel. Now it's time to talk about the dial. The dial. Wow, this is pretty interesting too. The dial is made of enamel, and you might be asking, what is that? What is a purpose or why? What is that? Well, enamel is a way that they make the dial, and they make it it's a much more laborious process. They have to heat the dial to 850 degrees in an oven. And through some kind of process, I don't know exactly the process, but basically they have to do a very long process to make a dial that's made of enamel as opposed to lacquer, which is they just paint it on. And the enamel dials, they maintain this dark, beautiful black basically forever. Whereas opposed to the cheaper method to make dials, which is lacquer dials, painting it on, it can fade with time, and it's cheaper and faster, of course. But for a grand complication, it makes sense that Patek would spend the extra time, money, effort to make a dial that basically will last the lifetime, and probably several lifetimes of the user, because I presume you would pass it on to somebody else. So that's what makes it very special. Now you can also see, I don't know if you guys can see this, but look at the 6 o'clock position, and you can see that it says email. Yes, it actually says email. It doesn't mean the actual word like email, like your inbox on Gmail. It means email stands for enamel in French, and that's what it stands for. So they've even told you how special this dial is by writing it on the dial itself. Okay, and what else I can also say about this dial? Look at these hour markers, 12, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11. Those are all gold-applied Breguet numerals, and basically they're made of gold and they're carved out to perfection, and then they're placed by hand on the dial. They're not painted on the dial, which would have been much cheaper and easier. No, they're actually made of gold and literally placed on the dial, which takes a long time to make as well. So I think that's pretty special. And if you like Breguet markers, numerals, you could also call them Arabic, but they call them Breguet. I'm not sure why. I'm sure there's a reason to that. But the Breguet markers here give it a very classic look. In my opinion, it makes it very opulent. Lastly, I want to show you the hands. Now, if I shine this light at it, then you can see that the hands actually luminesce. It's not the greatest luminescent, but at least you can see it. And for a dress watch, a lot of watches don't even bother putting luminescence, and Patek has figured out how to put the luminescent on here in a very classic way. Okay, let me just show you how this also works. Okay, so now that we've talked about the case, the bezel, the dial, now let's just try it. Now I'm going to press this top button here, and that's going to start running the chronograph. and it's just like your normal chronograph. Now this is a split second. Now what exactly that means is that it can capture 2 different times. It can calculate 2 different elapsed times. So long as number 1, they start at the same time, and yeah, so long as they start at the same time. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop it, but I'm going to start the second hand by pressing the middle button next to the crown. Ready? Okay, then you see me press the second one, and now you see the second hand has continued to move. But if I want to see the first elapsed time, I just simply look at the bottom, and that tells me, well, X amount of time has passed, and the second hand will continue to go around. And once it goes around a full minute, then the right one will pop over 1 little tick. Okay, so I'll leave that running so you can see. Now if I want to stop it, I press the top button like this, and then if I want to reset it, I press the bottom button. If I want to keep it going again, I just press the start button again. So pretty cool. It's a split second. It can tell multiple times. Well, actually can tell 2. Okay, alright, so that's what it does. Let's turn it over to the back now. And I just kind of told you at the beginning of this. Now we're looking at the movement. The movement is a caliber CHR 29 to 535 PS. And so I think that's pretty cool. Let's look at the movement. Now this movement is really crazy. It's what makes this watch so expensive. And I just want to also remind you that this watch retails for almost $300,000 on Patek's website. And if you want to buy it at a discount, way less than that in the low 2s, at least as of 2023, go to jazztime.com or click on the link in the description below to buy it at the lowest price anywhere online. Okay. Now, this movement here, it's a super crazy movement. The diameter is 29.6. It has a height of 7.1, and it has 312 parts, 34 joules, and it has a power reserve of approximately 55 to 65 hours. And I mean, it kind of speaks for itself. Now, if you haven't seen a lot of movements, you may not understand, but I'm pretty sure you can still use your worldly knowledge by looking at this movement and saying, wow, this must have took a lot of work. I mean, it's 312 parts that they had to put together, and it ends up looking like this. It's a crazy movement, and you can take my word for it. The finishing, the application, the placement of everything on this movement, it's one of the best in the world, if not probably the best in the world. The way this movement looks, it's really a work of art. Not only does it work, it also looks super beautiful. So I can't tell you much more about it since I don't really understand how this all works. I'm not a watchmaker, but I think any layman can just look at the back and say, hey, wow, this is a beautiful watch. Or at least it's a beautiful movement. Okay, so I pretty much went through all the parts and I guess I show you the bracelet. I mean, well, actually it's just a strap. Now these straps are interchangeable. It's just a black leather strap. You can change it to anything you want, whatever color you want. And it has this fold-over clasp. Now I'm going to put it on my wrist. I'm 200 pounds. I have a 7.5-inch wrist, so I'm going to put it on my wrist, and so you can take a look. Okay? Now what do you think? Does it look nice? I think it looks nice. I think it looks fantastic, actually. It's one of the best watches that Patek makes, hence the name Grand Complication. What are my thoughts? Well, for 200,000 or 200,000 plus, I should say, it's in a very small category. There's not a lot of watches in this range. Of course, who would I be comparing to at this price point? Audemars Piguet, that's for sure. One of their biggest competitors. And maybe Richard Mille. These are the only 2 companies that would kind of compete in this price range. I want to take Richard Mille out because their sports watch is a dress watch. This watch that I'm holding here could probably compete with Audemars Piguet, probably some of their Royal Oak dress lines, or their Code 11.59S, which are looking pretty awesome too. But as far as if you're just talking like a pure dress watch, because APs are not really making pure dress watches, they're kind of making hybrid sports dress, which is a good thing, but it's not this watch. This watch is a pure dress watch. You don't wear this one. You wear this when you're wearing something fancy, and this is a fancy watch, hence the name Grand Complications. So if you want top of the line, straight up dress watch, it's like wearing a suit or a pair of Oxfords or a 3-piece suit, something like that. This is definitely a watch that you would consider and probably want to buy. Now, they don't make the black anymore, at least as of 2023. They're only making blue. So you can try that as well, but you can probably buy the black one on our website at jazztime.com. So anyways, I've given you my thoughts. I've tried it on. If you look at the watch, it looks fantastic on my wrist. Let me show you the side profile. It also does not look too thick, so if you want to buy this watch, you know where to go. jazztime.com.
If you want to find out more about the watch you just saw in the video, you can just click below on Show More to see the full description. Then you can check the link next to model as seen in video, click on it and you will get to the proper page where you can see all the details. If you're watching on a mobile phone, you have to click on the arrow down on the right hand side below the video to see the full description. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. If you would like to share this video with your friends, you can use the share button below and share it on any platform you like. If you have questions, constructive feedback, want to tell us about some mistakes or misspeaks, just write a comment below. If you want to see more videos like this, you should subscribe to our channel and visit our channel page where you can find all the videos. And if you're interested in a specific watch brand, you can check out our playlists. If you want to check the price for a watch or want to buy one, remember at jazztime.com you always get a steep discount, so you should check the prices with us. If you want to know the price for a specific watch, just go to Google, type in Jazztime, plus the brand, model and the details you're interested in, and Google will find the right page for you. Thank you for watching.